boy, did I receive a gift in the middle of the night. And I want to share it with you in the best way I can put it into words, because it's overwhelming to me how big it could be. Not everyone is going to think the way I do. Not everyone is going to think that this makes any sense for them. It's up to you if you want to keep watching. I was up at like 3 a.m. watching TikTok videos, watching one by a creator called Just Flying By. And she was looking into the camera, speaking to her viewers and saying, I believe you can bring heaven to earth. Out loud, I say, well, sure, why not? If we all get to create heaven to be exactly how we want it to be, why couldn't we do the same with our lives here? And then it would be like heaven on earth, because that's how heaven is, or the afterlife. No one's heaven is going to be the same as someone else's, because for each person, heaven is exactly as we would imagine heaven to be. So perfect, really. We're not going to be any of the things that make life on earth sometimes feel like hell. We get to create our heaven to be whatever would make us most happy. Because it's all just based on unconditional love. It can be perfect. And it does work this way, to my understanding, that everyone's heaven is going to be different. A friend of my daughter's, her father passed away, and he very kindly took me along on what it was like to wake up from going to sleep on earth to realizing, Dorothy, we're not in Kansas anymore. He described being on the most beautiful, amazing golf course he had ever seen. He was looking around in awe at the beauty. It was just something that made him so happy and so excited to be there. And then he saw this little blob in the distance, but the blob was moving and it was coming closer and closer. And when it got close enough, he could see it was his most favorite dog he'd had on earth. To him, his heaven was being on a golf course and having his favorite dog with him. We get to create it to be whatever would make us most happy. I think it's probably as we first arrive and are settling in, something that will give us ease at the change in our circumstances. So if each of us get to create what is heaven for us, why couldn't we do the same thing for our lives here? The only thing stopping us is that we would say, oh yeah, sure. But out of my mouth in the middle of the night came, sure, why not? So think about it. The things that make earth so difficult, that are not going to exist in heaven, there's not going to be any shame. There aren't going to be any people putting us down, making us feel bad about ourselves. There won't be competition. There won't be strife, conflict. As I was editing, I realized I left out something kind of big. I don't think that this would apply to soul contracts. You know, there are things we've agreed to experience before we come here. I obviously agreed to have a million things wrong with my body for whatever reason. So I don't think that I could just say Shazam and wave my magic wand and say, well, in my heaven on earth, I don't have any of these physical ailments anymore. I'm talking about us being able to shift how we make decisions. For instance, if you wanted to say no, because you knew something would make you miserable, you wouldn't say yes instead because you're so used to pleasing everybody else. You would say no, because in your heaven on earth, you wouldn't want to be miserable. Things we have control of over how we think, how we act, how we choose. We could totally alter our reality in a very positive way. None of those things would be in heaven because none of those fit with being surrounded by unconditional love. So if we start believing if we can make our own heaven, we can also make our own heaven on earth. We start doing what we can to eliminate the things within us that make us believe in strife and conflict and judgment and competition and being miserable. Whatever makes us not happy in our lives, if we believe it's possible, we can start shifting. Not saying it's going to be easy because we have all these limiting beliefs as humans. But if we thought about it, what we're doing in creating our lives here, then we could start to say, well, wait a minute, I'm creating my heaven on earth. There's not going to be shame there. This shame has to go. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's all going to come down to whether you believe that you can co-create with the universe. If you are still believing that your life is totally out of your hands, that you don't create anything, then obviously this isn't going to make sense to you. But if you do believe that we create our own reality, then this is something that maybe could change life for a lot of us. No, wait a minute. I'm just not going to see these things as obstacles because I'm working on my heaven on earth. And in my heaven on earth, there aren't going to be obstacles. Now, wait a minute. I'm not going to be telling myself that I'm not good enough to do that because I'm creating my heaven on earth. And in my heaven on earth, there's not going to be any putting myself down or seeing that I'm not good enough for anything. Because I am creating this. I want what's going to make me happy. We would have to really embrace that we deserve to have heaven on earth. The next time you're worrying, you might stop and say, wait a minute, would I want this worry in my heaven on earth? Because I think everyone knows we die, we go to the afterlife. We don't carry this stress with us. We don't carry the pain, the bodies that have shut down, the minds that have shut down. We don't carry any of the things with us into the afterlife that are so painful to experience here. So if you believe that that can be just happiness of existing surrounded by unconditional love, then you should be able to believe that you can also shift your reality here on earth. Yes, there are all these other players, but we don't have to let them control what our heaven on earth is going to be. That's up to us, just like it is when we create our heaven that's not on earth. Yeah, I don't know if this makes any sense at all. You know how it is in the middle of the night and you go, oh my God, what an amazing idea. And then, hours later, you can't remember exactly what you were thinking. Maybe you can just take the bare bones of it and run with it. I do believe it's possible. And maybe we just needed to realize, if I can do it there, I can do it here. Because I can do anything. There are no limits to what I can do.